In regards to the European rock and metal landscape, and many of you know this if you've graced my coverage before, this is a sentiment that I feel like I've been echoing a lot lately. I appreciate works, and this isn't just a specific focus of Europe, I mean this can apply broadly. I appreciate with the European metal landscape how much prominence is set in integrating the tone of culture and history into musical pieces, whether it be through the feel of the song or the narrative structure. In this case, I imagine we're getting a journey of that's twofold. On part of not just, based on FEUERSCHWANZ familiarity, and I say that in respect again to the musical side because having engaged with 5 of their works publicly on this channel in terms of first introductions with those pieces in particular, though at this point I'm very familiarized to FEUERSCHWANZ offerings in nature, and I do feel that if you're approaching this video on a first name basis of who's FEUERSCHWANZ, I think you're going to come to like them. Now, I would also strongly recommend if you've not entertained the European rock and metal music landscape as extensively as I have, maybe you can take part in the journey with me on this channel. I've given you at the very least an easy ticket of access in the number of hours that we've spent together inquiring on first impression talents here within Europe, but you can maybe go take the journey yourself if you wish to as well, but I would strongly encourage you, again, based on viewer preference perhaps, but I would strongly encourage you to take the journey for yourself and invest in European listens. And there are many advantageous talents in the world. FEUERSCHWANZ is but one. But they're one of the stronger voices in my opinion, and they're certainly the most dominant in regards to recommendations from previous viewers and ever coverage for what I've offered in the music European themed library. They appear quite often, and as such, they'll also be getting a number of incoming coverage songs that I've already pre-bought all the songs I'm going to cover. In fact, I got a good selection of their work. Substantial video presence of FEUERSCHWANZ incoming over time. That's for sure. But I really enjoyed digging deep with them. Again, as I normally do, for the benefit of those who are approaching this on a first impression, if you're not familiar with FEUERSCHWANZ, German folk metal. Think that type of energy. But I also like the scope of this work. And it's funny how it's reminiscent of other pieces as well, even by substance, not just in feeling on integrating history, but in the particular subject matter. So the song, as you can see, is entitled MALLEUS MALEFICARUM, which is not German, it's Latin, I believe, and it translates to The Hammer of Witches, which was a real book, I believe, or real publication from, I forget the origin date, 1486, so way back. We are digging into European history substantially, but this is basically, as I understand upon, because granted, I'm not the most educated on European history, and I had to look this up as well on the first impression of where I first heard this term in another work. I'll get to which one that was in a minute, which, again, setting the baseline here, gives me a nice feeling of approach on how I'm going to approach this based on some familiarity. It's basically a condemnation, from my understanding, from a biblical Christian perspective, or a Catholic perspective, because this was a Catholic book in origin, on witchcraft and sorcery. Which, I mean, personally speaking, I've made it no secret on this channel that I come from a Christian perspective on all the content that I consult, so, perhaps I could agree with this sentiment in particular regard. But I will say, it's interesting as well to inquire on history, right, and to explore it, perhaps even, again, if you're not the most familiarized to it, or maybe the points of historical occurrences dip into darker waters. As it pertains to Europe, the integration of this particular storyline I found quite fascinating. And it's not necessarily usual, because I think if you're charmed by stories of historical sorcery condemnation, apparently, or at least an investigation on it, because I'm reminded when I look at the name of this piece and the attribution of the MALLEUS MALEFICARUM of a longtime favorite of mine, Blackbriar. Some of you know that. Dutch symphonic Gothic metal, and I also am very fascinated with them. I mean, speaking in regards to that integration of culture, they are very myth-focused. If you're not familiar, and they tell a lot of tales within the lyrical constructs of their songs blended with a very atmospheric and captivating score. I love with Blackbriar because they also had a song that was themed around the MALLEUS MALEFICARUM, at least in story scope, being Weakness and Lust. It was featured on their first album, The Cause of Shipwreck, and the vocals on that, I'm not surprised at all with Zora, because I mean, she's just, Zola Cox, the lead vocalist there, and she's amazing to listen to. Transfixing vocal talent, high, I think it's a soprano range, truly whimsical. It's beautiful to entertain. But the song had this perspective to it where sort of it was, the lyrics were extremely well crafted and part of the storyline. But that was sort of the theme, at least from my understanding, and inspiration of the work. I mean, the MALLEUS MALEFICARUM was not stated verbatim, but it had that inquiry where it's like somebody in nature blaming or somebody in reality blaming like a supernatural or spiritual presence or something more phantasmic along like the sorcery lines of, you know, all of life's troubles. I find the investigation interesting, especially when you're pertaining to European talents. I love the investigation into other facets of history and culture that I'm not the most familiarized to. And that's been a fun, advantageous side journey with certain European groups, and we're about to embark on that with FEUERSCHWANZ. So it's twofold: German personality, which I find just so enamoring, mixed with historical exploration. Let's humor the piece for ourselves on part of not just the song, but the video as well to accompany it. I'm assuming it'll be the same with the MALLEUS MALEFICARUM, or the Hammer of Witches. Oh, you got a hurdy-gurdy! Good personality already, and a kind of a live show as well. Ah. Nice, deeper range on that. Great riff. I'm not even gonna try pronouncing that word. Like 1486 translated. That's long now. I was afraid I didn't get the pronunciation right, and I'm Malleus, or Malleus. I'm kind of close. Not Malleus. I got the last one right, though. I'm happy in that. Those background vocalizations swinging in are a wonderful element. Yeah, this tune's got a great construction to it. I love that swing rhythm. And I like the change of timing too. It's a nice distorted element. Keeps your attention engaged. It has a nice feel and diversity to the scope of the song. It doesn't feel too static. Well, I'm sure if it were static to the same beat, it'd be fine. Leave it to Hans to get some good riffs and worked in there. Very impressive in some of our artistic endeavors and what we've looked at thus far. Nice change, I like that. Elevates the ending, keeps it feels stacked. Especially on the ending vocalization, everything works that song. It's extremely tight. Everything feels wonderful in the scope of it. a great piece to humor. Again, like I said, I love the historical journey I'm taking of many European talents, and with FEUERSCHWANZ, that certainly applies. Great emphasis. Again, I personally have said many times I gravitate to the harsher in rhythm. I'm much more of like an agitated, frenetic type metal guy, even though I do keep a door open, because there are, metal is, even amidst, again, that harsher tone of what people put more so, I guess, in early attribution, there is a wide scope of tones that can entail. And sometimes you might have songs go more the ballad direction, others with more of a gentler approach, others go a bit on the harsher side. I tend to prefer the latter, but I keep an open door to softer songs. And in this case of the channel, we've explored a good variety, and there's not been a song I haven't consulted on this channel, or that I have consulted that I haven't liked. And with FEUERSCHWANZ, certainly applies. I feel that with Malleus, I think I'm getting the pronunciation right, Maleficarum, it has a good mixture between the two tones. Like, it's got that swinging, slower paced rhythm going in, but then it emboldens towards the chorus. And I do feel the timing change as well. I love that element. I love how it switches. At least in feeling, sound it did for me. But the song has great personality, steady flow to it. I love that swing rhythm and part. It feels so German. But the personality to it is very enchanting. I love the performance vibe, too, as well, with the demonstration. I mean, it adds, again, like a nice feeling of devotion on part of the artist. You really feel immersed in the work and brought in. You sense that love and the devotion. It connects with you. And with FEUERSCHWANZ, I mean, it's fun to entertain German talents. I mean, at this point, I've just fallen in love with so many different bands, and FEUERSCHWANZ has been no different. In the path of that song, it was fun to explore. I mean, even... again, like I said, some words are finally starting to stick out with me in regards to the German language. And it's partly because in the act of translating for you, I pick up on certain terms and their definitions and the pronunciations more in depth. I'm not even going to try, though, as I said, pronouncing that opening word in, like, the 1486 one is what it translates to, but do I even dare try? There's a next soon Oxy. I don't know. You learn new things every day. FEUERSCHWANZ is wonderful to entertain, especially on personality. And like I said, I love the double-layered approach here. Mixing explicit German flair, especially on sound and word choices. With the historical tone on part of a song that has some depth. Again, I think back with the history of... I can't speak as well with like the Malleus Maleficarum, but I think of America in terms of where they were evoking at least an image and similar feelings. Maybe there is a comparison to make. Again, I don't remember exactly, because this was a little earlier on than what we endured in history, but like the Salem witch trials, for example. I think of that. And there were similar connections. I think... I'm looking at like a rough translation as I say this, but this stands up being like... I remember, many of you know who are familiarized with the content I offer on this channel that I tend to consult, or at least I have over the years, cinema more regularly. So I think of other cinematic endeavors where I've entertained said stories in history, like, for example, the most recent Pirates of the Caribbean movie, where this was picked up with the woman, I forget who played the character, Kaya Scodelario, love her. And, I mean... I felt in the film it got to be a bit cliche after a time in the way it was organized, but it was still, the feeling there. You got kind of the historical integration of the scientist woman who everybody mistook for, "You're a witch." It was kind of funny, but, I think back on the history, and, there is something to be said, perhaps. But, I mean, it's a good story. I really like the energy of the piece. Again, like I said, great flow, and I love the personality of it, especially on that distorted timing. Distorted. That's not the right word I want to use. Contrasted. I like that it fluctuates a bit again. It gives it a great personality. It's a fun piece to entertain. I didn't realize Amen is the same. Well, I guess because it's maybe a religious term. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's Hebrew in origin, I believe. But it translates the same in German. That's interesting. At least they sung it the same way. That's cool. Again, like I said, you learn something new every day. And I certainly do have pronunciations and new words and part of FEUERSCHWANZ. as well as all German talent. I mean, it's a real advantage to Europe. I mean, you really get a nice perspective on different cultures in the world at a very close range, especially in the European music landscape. If you're like me and you entertain works this regularly, especially on repeat listens, it becomes a very familiarized environment to you. I'm sure for those of you who are approaching Feuerschwangz on the initial phase, I think it'll, evolve over time. I can certainly speak on faith, given my own journey. They become a mainstay presence here, and certainly on my playlist, and they're evolving into that over the coverage of songs I have yet to consult, and it's quite a number. And I'm excited to do so, though. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below if you wish to inform us all on perhaps what angle you come from and your opinion on the piece. I felt that, again, as I said, it had some great strength on part of its various elements that really work for me. And especially as well in the riff delivery on part of Hans. Great integration there. I like the fluctuation. And again, I'm familiarized to him for The Dark Side of the Moon, who I've recently consulted. Love them. And with Feuerschwangz, I like hearing the integration as well. It's a very recognizable element, a part of him from what I'm familiarized to. I've gotten a better perspective on his talents and his reach. And I think the integration here on the riff structure was quite fabulous to a piece that is very diversified in its focuses, but is united in its canvas. Very impressive work, in my opinion. Great piece of art. And with the historical dimension, adds on a very unique flavor. But again, I prioritize if Europe listens, and I've been satisfied. Really, every chance I've had to entertain it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.